Hello, and welcome to Brass Bites. My name is Andy, and I'll be your host. In today's episode, I catch up with the eternally positive Philippe Schartz. Philippe is the principal trumpet player of the BBC National Orchestra of Wales and teaches at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. As well as his orchestral career, Philippe has had success as a soloist, releasing recordings from the classical concertos from Haydn and Hummel to the Aratunian and Grace Williams. Philippe is a Yamaha performing artist and endorses their ethos of continual development with their motto, never to stand still. So I invite you to absorb what Philippe has to share in episode 5 of Brass Bites. Hello, Philippe, and welcome to Brass Bites. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Can I say Andrew? Is it Andy?
It's Andy. Yeah, Andy's fine.
Andy, fantastic. So thank you so much for asking me to take part in this. It's a real pleasure. And yeah, we're doing good. I mean, we're doing really good.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun in this. And so basically, I ask everyone that comes on, the first question is, how did you start music? Why music? And specifically, actually, why the trumpet?
Okay, so some of you viewers might know, or you know maybe, that I am from Luxembourg. And in Luxembourg, there's a really old tradition of wind band playing, wind band music, and the same bit like, brass band movement, obviously, in the UK. And I think it's one of the oldest music traditions in Europe. Am I allowed to say that word, Europe? I'm not sure. But, the other side of the island. And so it's over 175 years old. And it's absolutely amazing. So everybody, that kind of like wants to be part of a band, gets an instrument. And at the time, obviously not nowadays days, because there's so many other distractions that you can do, or there's sports, there's all sorts of things that you can do. But at the time of my parents, I think there were bands in all the small villages of about 100 people. And I am from the south in Luxembourg, and that is really important because the north is very far away, about 80 odd kilometers, so 25 minutes drive away. So it's really important that I'm from the south and there's the north. And see, all over the country were those bands, small villages, bigger sort of like villages, bigger towns. Anyway, in the south, in Chifflange, where I'm from, there was a band, and that had also over 100 or so members. The whole sort of like community was really part of that band. And so I got to play percussion first, sort of little drums, because there is a bit of a tradition. Whenever there is a fair in the village, the music band goes around and they play a little tune, and they raise money, and they're having a fantastic day out. And the first time I remember, I walked with my dad to play the clarinet in the band, and my mum, who played the xylophone, because she was a piano player. So they always asked her for the marching, because there were all sorts of marches as well, to play the xylophone. The glockenspiel part, the sort of like, the held one. And so that's how I started. And at some point I said to my dad, I would like to play the trumpet. And I can't remember where and when, but he came back from rehearsal one day and he brought this case. And in that case was that trumpet. And then I was allowed to learn a little bit. And the way you being taught, or you were taught at the time, was that you looked up to the first player and you looked how the fingers were going, and how what he would do, or what he or she would do. And that's how you learned to play. I went to the conservatory then. It started a bit differently. But so I went around and played when there was fairs, when there were marching bands and all sorts of things. That's how I started.
That's fantastic. I mean, coming from a brass banding background myself, I mean, I'm quite short, so I always look up to people. But just copying people actually is a very essential part of the learning experience. I know for myself now, if I was having a trumpet lesson, I actually learn more if somebody was to give me an example rather than the words, which is fantastic. So you've obviously come from the wind orchestra background from back home, but now you're a principal trumpet player for the BBC National Orchestra of Wales here in Cardiff. Do you actually miss playing in the wind orchestra?
you know, sometimes I really do, because I remember that we had a youth band as well, which was really good fun, where we used to go away over weekends and had sort of like really, really fun times. But the repertoire in the wind band, as you know, in the brass band as well, is really amazing. There are some fantastic original compositions. And then there are all those arrangements of pop songs, of musicals, of film scores. And that's what we used to do. And there was a rehearsal every Sunday morning. I remember that. And also that if you sort of like were, you know, at some point good enough, they would also allow you to go and play in the big band, you know, in the adult band, if you want, in the main band. So yeah, I do play. Sometimes when I go back home, I just go and sit in, and I just play. And I do miss it, because I sit, you know, somewhere over there where the trombones, you know, far away. And it's kind of like just always nice to play a melody. It's always really good to play, and especially the trumpet, you know, in a wind band, or a cornet part, and a piston, the French piston sort of like parts. They really play the melody all the time. And there's also a really fantastic tradition. There's two bands, and that we have to be really careful that we maintain that. There are two bands in Luxembourg. They're called fanfare. And in a fanfare, in the setup, the orchestration is you only have flugelhorns, and then saxophones, E-flat saxophones, soprano saxophones, E-flat saxophones, tenors, and then the trumpets. You have no clarinets. That means that flugelhorns, cornets, trumpets played together with the saxophones, always the melody. I mean, most of the time. My gosh, the sound is, I mean, if you play together with an E-flat saxophone or with a soprano saxophone, you know, you can imagine you run a mile. But it's a fantastic tradition, and there's some really good, you know, you need to have some technique, like in the good brass bands here, where you really need to be able to play up and down instrument, and nimble tongue, nimble fingers to get round the parts.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something for the wind orchestra, or the woodwind tradition, is that they're very agile, and actually transcribing that onto the brass band parts and the trumpet parts in the wind orchestra.
Like in the brass
marches, it's quite difficult.
It's the string parts, you know, that being transcribed onto cornets, and the same on the clarinets are also the strings, and bit of flugel on. Yeah, it's true.
So when you're playing orchestral pieces, like the really popular ones, like say William Tell or something, you know, in the brass band arrangement, there's that insane cornet solo that is actually the violin solo. Do you not think, when you're sat there thinking, you're watching Leslie play the insane violin part, not thinking, I could do that, I could stand up and play that?
Of course we can do that, but we don't need to show that we can do that, you know. But having said that, the brass band arrangement is in F major.
Yes, definitely.
It's much easier than the original score in F sharp. B-flat instrument. So
see, there's the trick for our viewers. There's the trick. Just play it in the key you can.
Yes.
It's quite an important point for arrangers. Anyway, arrangers out there, you can pick any piece and you can transcribe it for band, and it doesn't have to be in the original key. Just make it in an approachable key. Which is,
for example, also all our composer colleagues out there that can, you know, because we have a fantastic scheme, is the Welsh composer scheme, where we get the chance to, and I think the young composers get the chance to play and hear their piece for the first time. And there's always a discussion, not just about now, you know, what is actually possible on the instrument, but also the range of the instrument. And they have an idea, and it possibly sounds really pretty amazing on a computer program, like, you know, I could mention 2 or 3 now about Sibelius. So, and you press the button and trumpet comes out, beep. But actually, you know, the real instrument like that is not always that easy. So you have to exactly, and that's true. I mean, why play in F sharp major when you can play in F major, you know?
Yeah.
For us, as we use one finger, we use kind of like a combination of all those 3 all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely something to take into consideration. So we mentioned a little bit about your education earlier when you started. I really want to push on further in time, up to when you started studying at university. Now, for our viewers, Philippe has travelled all around the world with his education, and actually started university off at the Royal College of Music in London. Could you tell us some of your experiences there, especially with your teacher being the piccolo trumpet player for the Beatles. How was that?
Well, my teacher, Mr. Mason, and look, Mr. Mason is not with us anymore, and I am still saying Mr. Mason. His name was David Mason. I would never allow myself to say, oh, David or so, because that's, that's how we kind of like, communicate these days. But I couldn't, out of respect and out of simply what he taught me. And straight off, and I said this many, many times, if today, right now, I just practiced a little bit. If today I could do the exercises like Mr. Mason has showed me, urban exercises, how to do them. He took them apart a little bit, he added a bit, all sorts of things. If I could play all the things that he taught me, that he wanted to teach me, if I could do them properly now, honestly, I'd be very happy. He was a tough cookie. He was absolutely a gentleman. And he taught me, my boy, you play the trumpet like this, because his teacher was Ernest Hall. And Ernest Hall, as you know, was at some point sort of like the leading trumpeter, from the BBC Symphony Orchestra, and Philip Jones and all sorts of people have gone through that same room, their room number 29 down at the Royal College of Music. And Mr. Mason, he taught me how to play straight. He taught me how to play orchestrally. He taught me how to play symphonically. He supported me in everything that I did. He also did not like the C trumpet coming from the continent. Then I played on the C trumpet. He did not like that because he himself was a big sort of like fan of the B flat instrument. And there is even a little story here that at the end of my first year at the Royal College of Music, I did not do my my end of year exam because the piece that I was playing, I played on C trumpet, and he didn't like it, and he did not allow me to play that. So I had to come back in September and play a different program. He knew about it. He kind of like played with me all the time, let me play all the time. And then at the end, he said, well, no, I'm sorry, you won't be able to do that because it's on C trumpet and it's no good enough. It's not what I want you to do. So he taught me a lesson there and I kind of like stuck with what I wanted to do as well, because these days, as you know, we use C trumpet as well, and already in America and already in Scandinavia and everywhere else we use that. But Mr. Mason he knew what he wanted. And I think he had at that time 9 principal trumpets in the UK. And he always said to me, you will be my number 10. And I am his number 10. And then that's it.
That's fantastic. So during your education at the Royal College of Music in London, you also travelled over to New York to study at the Eastman School of Music as an orchestral trumpet player. We look to these excerpt books, the Holy Grail of excerpt books from the Hickman books, and David Hickman was one of your teachers, I believe.
Not directly.
Okay.
Also, I didn't go to the Eastman School sort of like during the Royal College. I went after. I went as a postgrad. I did a postgrad in New York, in upstate New York. And I met Mr. Hickman. But there we were now, we're talking about C trumpet repertoire and all that, or C trumpet territory. It was quite different in America than it was here, because we had classes, for example, which is something that we're doing at the Welsh College now. We had twice a week, we had an excerpt, sort of like, exam or mock exam, and we played to each other all the time. And every single time we got videoed, and we knew exactly, when I came back from Eastman, I knew exactly what to do. Well, it was good enough or not, I'm not sure. It seemed to be okay, but I knew where to stand, what to say, and how to play that excerpt. I had a really good idea. It was drowned into us. And I think that is something that maybe in Britain we don't do enough. We learn the excerpts now, but we also say that we kind of like just, it'll be all right. We do not play. In my opinion, we need to sort of, that's the way into the ticket. And if you know your orchestral excerpts, and if you know your repertoire, then I think you have a better chance for all those auditions. Because as you know, in the continent, in Europe and in America, it's a competition audition. That means the best player on that day gets the job, not a trial system that we have here, where we invite half a dozen or a dozen people and everybody can play. That's no problem. But we then, both, we can talk about that a little bit later. But in America, yes, I really enjoyed being drilled. The excerpts, they were drilled into me. And there was a time in my life when you could have, woken me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would have played you Petrushka, the solo, note perfectly standing on my head, because I was ready. That's what we did every day, all day long.
That's fantastic. That's really something that that I feel like I should take some notes from myself. Actually, just being able to wake up and go through my recital programs. It's not something I can do at the moment, but it's definitely something that I should maybe aspire to. So you've obviously had a lot of experience with your undergraduate and your postgraduate traveling around the world. How has that all come together to affect you as a player, a person, and actually your teaching now?
Well, first of all, we learn from everybody, and we learn all the time. That's again the royal we. No, I think we need to, we kind of like need to be having an open mind all the time. You will find, like myself, I found a way of playing that suits me. I need to do my maintenance. I need to do what I need to do in order to be able to play a certain part. Just before the lockdown, we were still hoping, before the second lockdown, we were still hoping to play Mahler 5, which is a typical, one of the major trumpet pieces in our repertoire. Gorgeous piece of music, played many, many times, of course. But so in order to play that solo, in order to get the stamina, to get the strength to play through that whole symphony, I need to do what I need to do in order to be able to play the notes. And in that way, I think you also devise then a certain, what is the word, an idea of what you can teach people. And although we are all individuals, that's really important. And not one method works for anybody or for everybody. You have to be able to be adapting, and you have to really listen to what that student, that person, they're sort of like, what they really need. And then you dig into your little sort of like toolbox, and then you find a little book, you find a little study, you find a little sort of like exercise that helps that particular person. All in all, we always need to really take care of this, because I think this is really important. This is our sort of like, where it all happens. Yeah. Our embouchure, our scaffolding, our whatever you want to call it, our mask. And then the most important for me is the way it sounds. If you have a really, really good, vibrant sound in all the registers, that means that there's not a lot wrong here. You need good, fluent articulation. You need to play with a really good sound. Going back to David Mason, he always used to say to me, it's really sound and intonation. And for you, I'm a little bit older now, so for you young aspiring superstars out there, it's really important that I think, and talking a little bit about, how to be as a person, that you just, what comes out of your bell is your business card. And that is the most important. As a person, I was really lucky to meet a lot of people. And I want to learn so much. You never stop. And everybody has got something to say, and everybody has got, and you take the whole thing, and then you bake your own cake out of it. You also got to be really strong at some point to say what works and what doesn't work. So if you're on the wrong path, go and seek help, and somebody else will help you back on your own path again. But yeah, meeting people, being able to travel is what musicians do really well. And it's wonderful, because every single time when we take our instrument out, you play in a section, you coach a section or whatever it is, you make new friends, you have something in common, you play music, you do what you love, which I am very grateful for, and which, yeah, it's lovely.
It's all about connection, really. I think that's at the heart, not just as a musician, but just as people. It's all about connection. And I think just bringing that to everything that you do, which I think everything that you do is definitely, it comes from that connection, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. So your playing career, let's face it, has been pretty outstanding, to the point that your playing has been, your playing is being recognised by Yamaha, as you know, a performing artist. And on the back of all your orchestral success and your recording success. So how did this all come about?
Yamaha, particularly now, came about when I played as soloist in the Proms in London. There was a piece that our composer in residence at that time put together. It was a piece for clarinet and flugelhorn. And you know, we got the opportunity to play in London in the proms as soloists, which is really, really fantastic. And the representative of Yamaha came to the concert because somebody must have told him, Little Mouse must have told him. He came to see me. We had a beer afterwards, and as you know, the rest is history. But I think it's not only, it does not always happen like that. Obviously, you know, we all know like what people do. You hear, you speak, you meet people, you do those conventions, you meet people when you conventions, those brass conferences and all that. You meet people, and I think it's you find sort of like a company, or the company finds you where your ideas are similar, where your thinking is kind of like going towards the same thing. For example, with Yamaha, it's absolutely fantastic because the main motto for Yamaha is never to stand still. So not just now with music, their instruments, but anything. The leitmotif, if you want, for Yamaha is to always go on, to always move forwards, to always go the next step. So if you have something that is really, really good, a good product, if that's a clarinet, a flute, or, you know, a bike, they're already on to the next one, not to stand still. And that's also Japanese sort of like, you know, way of life. And I think that really speaks to me, because to be honest with you, I have yet to play a perfect note. And hopefully maybe one day I get a little bit close to one or two, and then I'll be really happy, because, you know, once you have that, you're ready to go on to the next one. So I don't think I will ever be perfect, but I'm chasing perfection. Maybe at some point I'll get, you know, kind of like, what is the word? Excellence. That'd be okay.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting to, because your level of success is already very high. Actually, you're still fighting, you're still wanting, and I know you're quite competitive, and we'll touch on a bit of that later. But you're still continuing to grow as a player, and actually having that motto is something that we need to, in ourselves, need to take down each element of our playing, break it down, and yeah, we might be okay at something, but we can get it even better. And it's all well and good playing the things, practicing the things that you're not so good at, but it's also keeping up and continuing growing with the good things.
Yeah, I think you need to see that word balance comes back all the time. The balance come back, the balance that you sort of like don't you know, destroy, that you develop, but the balance of life, how much you practice, how little you practice, you know, and how far do you take it. It's all about a balance. If you have a family, obviously, maybe you have other priorities at some point. If you have a job, you have to do your job, but you still have to practice it. Okay, but look, you also got to want it. You got to be hungry. And you young, sort of like, you know, and aspiring superstars, as I like to call you, you need to be super, super hungry. And perseverance is really, really important here as well. So it's that combination of being hungry, wanting to succeed, taking it as far as you can take, because it doesn't matter. Not everybody can be a principal trumpet. First of all, a first trumpet, a principal trumpet is only ever as good as his or her second. Okay, that's really important. And we're always a team. We're always sitting together. We always play together. And when things are going easy, go fine in a section, you know, if that's a brass band section or trumpet section in a symphonic setup now, that's all good. But when, you know, maybe one person has got a little bit of a thing here and there, and so that's where we need to stick together. That's where you need to be the team. And that's where it gels. And, you know, again, balance, if you want, you know, balance is an important word actually for all those things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, have as you mentioned your section, yourself and Rob Samuels sitting next to each other. I've been very fortunate enough to hear you playing together in many concerts back when we had them. It was £5 for a ticket to go see the BBC National Orchestra of Wales play on a Thursday night. Very fortunate for that. And I've never walked home disappointed. I always struggle to sleep after an event like that because I just get too excited. I'm just a sad person. It's just having that drive, just having that energy just really comes across. And there's definitely a sound that the BBC Orchestra has. It's a big sound. So for our viewers, definitely check out some recordings if you can. They should be all over Spotify and YouTube. You should be able to access them easily. So we've just touched a little bit what you'd say to aspiring orchestral musicians. What are your top 3 pieces of advice you'd give to an aspiring orchestral player?
Okay, if we can take orchestras just out of it now, because that is
Yeah.
one way that you can go. If we say for whatever you want to do with the brass instrument, if you want to go professional about it, okay, work hard, work really hard. If you're very natural, because such a thing does exist, or things come easy to you, you might have to work on other aspects of playing, but certain things come easy to you, okay. Work hard. Your number 1 is what you can do really well. Your number 20 is what you cannot do so well. So work on your list, number 20, 19, 18, and so on, so on, so on. Do not just work on the strong, on the easier bits. Work on, so that you're becoming a balanced player, that you become an accomplished player, an all-round player, that you can do everything. Because I think, especially these days, you have to be able to play in an orchestra, so transpose, read and transpose. You have to be able to play in a commercial setup, where you play a little bit of you use a bit more vib or more jazz, or you have to have a certain high register. You have to play with a little bit more, zing in the sounds. You have to change that. Then you have to play Baroque music. And these days, many times you have to play on a Baroque instrument as well, because the conductor just asks it, these days. And then if there's in a brass band, or if there's a sort of like an ensemble setting, like, chamber music, you have to know that is less maybe volume playing, but you have to still produce sort of like good notes, and you have to be able to really fly up and down the instrument. So work. Don't leave any stone unturned. Just do it all. You have time, specifically now during the lockdown, and hopefully we're going to be back to what we used to know, but work. And when you are at college, take that time. I know it's tough. You have all sorts of other things to do, but use the time to work it all out. Write down on a piece of paper what you don't know yet, and do it. And if you engaging in such a way with your brain and all that, and you just want to do it, your brain will find a way of doing it. Trial and error. Some days are more positive, some negative, but on a graph, what you want to go like this. So you want to do consistent and controlled, and then you get the confidence, to succeed. But you need to really work. So if you're not in it, really, you ask yourself, what are you doing there? Because it's tough enough. So you need to know the repertoire, you need to do all those things. Just do it, work it. Number 2, the most important still in the business, and I think in general as a person, as I alluded to a little bit before, what comes out of your bell is your business card. So this days like this, go and sit in, go and learn, go and ask as many questions like you. This is fantastic, this Brass Bites. Really, bravo, Andy, for doing this. It's a motivation and an inspiration for me as well to be able to talk to you now. But just go listen and just observe. And when your time comes and you have your audition, you have your moment to play, to be interviewed, do it the way you know it. But just these days, you play. Even if you think you're the best thing since sliced bread, and you can possibly play higher and faster and louder and all those things, that is not required. What is required is that you're a team player, that you listen, and when you get your chance to sit in, still run a little bit for the cup of tea in the tea break and say, oh, what would you like? And be the first one out to get the teas. It's just the way that you're being perceived as a person, because nobody wants to play in a section with you if you're not a nice person. So it's really important to be a nice person to, that is important. And rule number 3, if you want, if there's a third rule as such, I don't know, but the sky's the limit. That's what I always say. But the sky's the limit only if you don't give up, don't persevere. I mean, if you have to, do persevere. Don't give up. Don't, if you bog down, if things are not going so well, get up again. It's you versus you, okay? And it's tough and it's competition and all those things, but yeah, you gotta sometimes bite the bullet. You gotta sweat a little bit of blood here. You gotta really be working. Lionel Messi, footballer, he, in order to achieve his dream, if you have a dream, he said he worked more than anybody else. Maurice André, and just a few examples that come into my head now, he walked around his house in his heydays when he was like playing Brandenburg after Brandenburg for us trumpeters now, okay? He walked around his house like this. He would not even speak for days. He did his practice, then he would sit like this. He would not want to upset his embouchure. So, wow, dedication, all those things, yeah. So rule number 1, work. Rule number 2, be a good person. Rule number 3, don't give up, persevere, stick with it. That is something that I find sometimes as a teacher, when you prescribe a certain routine, sometimes that, you know, you're doing it, the students are doing it, and then after some point they give up. But they always give up too early before they can actually really reap the benefits. Because Rome wasn't built in a day, and it takes sometimes a little bit of time.
That's fantastic. I think one of the greatest pieces of advice that I ever got was after a Corey band concert that I was fortunate enough to watch when I was younger, and I met Tom Hutchinson for the first time afterwards, and he said to me, yeah, just let your playing do the talking. And I think that's what you're alluding to then. Absolutely spot on. And also being a nice person. I think that's something that I've taken away from doing, even this is episode 5. Everyone that I've spoken to so far, absolutely nice people and at the top of their game. So it's very important for our viewers to be nice people. Yeah, so now carry on. As a soloist, you have released many CDs with varying accompaniments like orchestral CDs, with organ and piano, pretty much everything that you might think about recording with trumpet, you've probably already done it. So how would you prepare for that sort of variety?
You know, like you prepare for everything else. Also did a CD with Bob and Corey. I just mentioned that because, you know, plugging that in, as you mentioned that you've interviewed Bob early on. I don't know, like you prepare for everything. Like this morning, first thing I do, I really want to make sure that I kind of like, you know, get rid of the lactic acid, warm up my muscles, that there is an easy free vibration. And if that is sort of like the high note that I need at the end, that's my first note of the day as well. I try to be straight away to put the level of my playing as high as I possibly can. Actually, one of my best pieces of advice I ever got, I took a lesson when I came to London for the first time of Peter Reeve. Peter Reeve was the second trumpet at the Royal Opera House, and he was one of the teachers at the Royal College of Music. And then we practiced for an hour. I had my consultation lesson. And then Peter said at the very end to me, I will never forget, he said, now you're at a really good level. You play really well. Now try tomorrow morning to start at that level again. See, not that you have to kind of like every single time paddle up again and get up there, but just try to keep the level going. That is really hard. That is really hard. But that's how I prepare for everything. I do have a really good system that has come, you know, sort of has been developed over the years. Because obviously you have to see with the orchestral setup or with the rehearsals and the concerts, I have to kind of like find the time sometimes. But there is a really good way of practicing. And I think this is really good. This is on build up or a device, from a book called How to Play a Double High C in 37 weeks, so in 9 months. And that gentleman, William Spoiling was his name. He went and like you, he interviewed people. He went to see every single sort of like band that passed through his town. He wanted to know how they're all doing it. And he came up with this sort of like system that the same system that Mr. Universe uses, you know, sort of like really big muscle building sort of like community, like your Arnold Schwarzenegger. And well, actually, there's a real tip-top science behind that. So I'm not going to say the real committed bodybuilders, they don't go to the gym every day and they lift, you know, whatever they can lift. They actually take the same approach as this trumpet book, which is one of the most efficient ways of developing muscle, strength, flexibility, stamina, everything. It's just one of the best ways to develop this and get strong. And it's also a fantastic time management system. So on day 1, day 3, day 5, day 7, day 9, and so on, so on, so on, you play your program, your pieces through. And of course, you heard that before, always start slowly, really slowly, play slow, and then play slower. And then you might be ready to play slow. So don't play fast, play slow. But on the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th day of your week, you play the whole piece through, or the recital program, or your excerpts. Whereas on day 2, 4, 6, 8, and so the in-between days, I call them now the technical days. You take your piece and you have identified by playing it through the day before where the difficult passages are, usually where there are semiquavers, okay, where usually there's a bit of a sort of like a long or a sort of like a difficult interval to play, you know, old slurred, old double piano, something like that. And then you practice that. So one day you play a lot, you play the piece through. The next day you play very little, very often. And a typical recital program of an hour, you know, takes an hour to play through. So you do that on day 1, 3, 5, and so on and so on. Whereas the other days, then in between, you just play very little, very often. So sometimes you get really good work done within 20, 25 minutes. Because you play a passage, you rest, you play a passage, you rest, you play that 2 or 3 notes, you really find the scent of those notes, you find where that pocket is, where the notes need to go, and you play very little and you rest a lot. So the one day where you do a big workout, the strength is being developed, stamina is being developed, whereas the next day, when you do very little, very often, all this can rest and you can work on your finger and tongue coordination. For example, you can work on just having the flexibility, not tiring out. And every single time in between, the muscle tissue does recover and hence you get stronger.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sort of structuring your practice, structuring your week, and actually maybe having a rest day isn't a bad thing. I mean, we're about to talk about our running. I know that we both like our running, and I know that especially with like endurance running, you can't go every day, or it's not advised to run every day because actually your muscles need to repair and then strengthen so you can go for a better run the next day.
Yeah.
So me and you, not just trumpet players, we're also runners, and I've heard that you like to do the odd half marathon every once in a while, as do I. How important is physical health to your playing? I mean, you've just alluded to having the building strength with your embouchure, but actually just carrying that all into your breathing and your overall fitness.
You know, so going back a few years now, really quite a few moons now, I was going to be a tennis player. I was going to be a professional tennis player. So sport has always been a big sort of like part of my life. But at some point when I was 15, 16 years old in Luxembourg, then they asked me to go and join the national team. They asked me to go and be part of the sort of like sports schools in Germany, every weekend away, every sort of like holiday away and stuff like that. And my parents and I can't remember exactly how it all happened, but they decided that that was not the thing to do also because it was really expensive at that time. Anyway, but we have from my village, I have to say, there's a junior Wimbledon champion there actually. So he doesn't play anymore, but he was the #1 Luxembourg player for many years now. So anyway, sport has always been part of it, and I think I simply feel better as a human person. My health, my breathing, everything. I just feel I can concentrate better. I can sort of like just do things better, easier. Yeah. You know, it just feels easier. So yesterday I did 12 miles. Okay, so today I can hardly walk. No, it's not quite like that. Today, obviously, as you know, is a rest day then, because tomorrow on the program, because my half marathon that I'm in my fictitious half marathon, because there are no races like that, is in a couple of weeks' time. So this week is sort of like another hard week, whereas then the next week on the program is sort of like a relaxing week. Sports, I think, particularly for your health, I think is a good thing. You just going out for a walk. We have a dog now for a few years now. So our Didi, you know, she needs to go. So I go with her. Just being out there walking is important. Doing a little bit more helps with your cardio, with your physio, all those things. It is a bit of yoga, a little bit of, you know, meditation, all those things. And sports is, yeah. Maybe you don't have to do anything, but it makes me feel better. That's all I can say.
Yeah, there's definitely things we don't even need to think about music when we're doing everything, which actually brings me to my second to last question, which is for some of our viewers this may put people off, and you know what's coming because I did send you the questions in advance, but I can't have an interview with you without mentioning how much of a Liverpool supporter you are. I mean, I saw you last year play a concert, and then afterwards, you took us to the pub opposite the Millennium Centre, and there was a big football match on, and Liverpool was playing, and just your reactions to everything was I was just so into it. Literally, as soon as you got into the bar, which is absolutely fantastic. Your enthusiasm is definitely something that we can all feed off of. So apart from maybe watching Liverpool or someone play, how do you turn off from music, your day-to-day job?
Sometimes I honestly like to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And maybe it is just putting on the tally, or maybe just going for a walk and just spending a bit of me time. Actually, that happens when I do my jog. And I try to kind of like, well, we haven't done this for ages now, but I try to always do my jog at lunchtime in the BBC, when we're working 10 till 1 and then 2 till 5 and then teaching in the evening. So I go out at lunchtime. I have a quick sandwich, just before we start again, or a banana or something like that, a piece of fruit. But so it's me time. It's time to, and I find that is really, really important. I don't know. Yeah, watching TV, watching a good film, reading a book. Oh my gosh, reading a book, talking to my family, spending some time with my family. This terrible situation that we find ourselves in with this pandemic has one good thing for our setup here, is that actually we had both our children at home all that time now, and we've bonded a little bit more. I have a 17 and a half year old son up here, and oh my gosh, he's ready to leave. He wants to go. I want him to go, just get as far as way possible now. He can't wait to get his driving test passed now, but it's been cancelled and all that. But to have had that last year with a teenage son together is really nice, and we bonded more because I've seen him every day. Okay, sometimes I would have loved him to be at school, and the same with my daughter. She's 15 now, she's 14. So that's really, and then spending time with my wife, with my best friend, simply having the chance to go for a walk, simply having the chance to sit down and have a cup of tea. She does work. She does track and tracing right now, so she's sometimes sitting in front of the computer, being really busy. But sometimes just taking time to talk to people is a really good way for me to clear my mind, because there is the one thing, there is the job, which I love and I'm super passionate about. But there is also the other way in my life that you have to kind of like be able to just do everyday things, normal everyday things, like the washing up, like cleaning the house, like, making sure the car works, things like that. We have a bit of grounds around here. So, I've done every single, fence is painted. Every single room in the house is painted because we have the time. We had the time now. So normal things, everyday things. And then sometimes sitting down, having a cup of tea, closing my eyes and having a little nap. That is also really good.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned having balance earlier, and it sounds like you've really found it. And actually, I think people have readdressed their balance throughout this pandemic. I mean, it's been over a year now with lockdowns. So yeah, it's pretty cool. That's really, really cool. So just one final question. I always like to finish on this question, and I know it's fairly obvious that you might just say balance, but leave us with any final pieces of advice.
Okay, no, it's actually not balance.
So fantastic.
Just sincerely be you. Just be yourself. Be as true as you can be to you. You will know, I'm preaching here, of course, you will know when maybe you've kind of like messed up here, where you could have maybe, done this a different way, certain things in your life. Nobody's perfect. Just be you. Trust in yourself. Be you. Be good. Be kind. Be kind to people. That's something that don't judge so quickly, all those things. So, but be you. Just who you are. That is how you're going to come across. That's how you're going to be, that's how you're going to be the most truthful in every single situation of your life. Be you. Don't copy things. Maybe yes, learn things. All those yes, and 1,000 other yeses, but be you.
Thank you very much. Well, Philippe, it's been absolutely amazing. Uh, uh, what a way to spend some time. Really, really grateful for your time today. I've certainly learned some quite a lot in that in this short time together, and I really do hope that I get to see you soon, whether it be in college or hopefully in a concert. Yeah, well, what an absolute pleasure. Amazing. It really is hard to spend time with Philippe and not be inspired. After that interview, he said to me to try to improve by 1% every day so that next year we will be at least 3 times better players than we are now. I recommend that you follow Philippe on Instagram where he shares his practice tips. Give this video a like and subscribe to receive notifications when a new video is released. If you enjoyed this episode, check out our previous episodes as well. And you can find us on social media at Brassbites or email us at brassbites@outlook.com. But for now, keep blowing and I'll see you next time.